Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the next episode of Life in Black and White and all the shades in between. Hi, Yao.
Hi.
We are laughing today. We tried a new laptop in a different room because Yao was desperate to be in a different room from me. I don't know why. And it just
No.
didn't work out. So he's next to me again.
I'm just glad to be closer to my wife, my loving wife. So we've got this on recording, right?
Yes.
Okay, good. Okay.
There is a proof. Today, we are speaking to another wonderful guest, Dipti Tait, who is a hypnotherapist and a psychotherapist. And she was born in London, but has an Indian heritage, which is amazing. And we would like to talk to her today about the differences in people, division between themselves, and how we can actually unite people. So we can actually use the same thing either to divide people or to unite people. But we talk about that more with Dipti. So hi.
Hello, you two. I love you two. You're just hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
And you actually meant both of us, right? Not just me. All right. Okay.
I actually meant both of you. I think the dynamic between you two is just absolutely, it's so unique but so brilliant. So
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you.
you're
So
lovely.
much.
So we can leave it there now. It was
Yeah,
nice speaking
yeah.
to you and see you in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Bye.
Ah. So let's talk about you first. Introduce yourself, please, to our listeners. Yeah, let's start with that.
Okay, well, I'm a mother of two adults. Well, obviously, they didn't come out as adults, but they are adults now, funnily enough. And as you said, I was born and brought up in London, but now I live in the Cotswolds. I've been in the Cotswolds for almost 20 years of my life.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can't take the London out of the girl, though, can you? Yeah. I mean,
Well
not you're a
done.
girl, but you know what I mean.
I
Once
know
you're a
exactly what you
Londoner,
mean.
you're always a Londoner.
Absolutely.
So, I'm a hypnotherapist here and a psychotherapist, and I've also written 2 books about grief, Good Grief and Planet Grief.
Wow.
Yeah, a little busy world that I've generated for myself.
Amazing. And your voice is just perfect for a therapist, no? So calming and soothing.
Well, that's
If you didn't do it for a living, I would suggest it right now.
Oh,
You should do
thank
this.
you. But the other day I was asking ChatGPT to describe me in one word, and ChatGPT said soothing.
Yeah.
Oh.
That's the one, yeah. Can I call you when we have an argument with Yao? Just to hear the voice.
Exactly. And because I do couples therapy as well. So there we go. Perfect.
Good. It's very refreshing to do a therapy or coaching as a couple because we don't want to go there now, but I think everyone needs it basically. So that's another subject for another day. So let's move on to what I talked about. Tell us your views.
So basically, you got in touch with me because I created a post maybe a couple of weeks ago now when it was all about the whole kind of the flag waving issue. And my post was, I was really sad about the fact that our flag is kind of sort of tarnished now in a way, whereas I really, really love the Union Jack as a symbol because, as you know, I've just said I'm from London. I was born and brought up in London. And for me, the Union Jack is an iconic, piece of, well, it's not just artwork, it's a piece of design. It's part of my heritage, part of my history, and part of, where I grew up and my world. And it's something that I'm proud to say that I'm British. I have a mini, and on my mini, we've got little Union Jack, things. And I kind of have Union Jack cushions around the house, and it's just because I love the image of it. But obviously now it's a bit of an interesting one because it's sort of seen as if you are a flag waver, you potentially could be right wing or racist. But I'm not right wing and I'm definitely not racist. But I still want to wave my flag. So that's what we started. That's how we both kind of got in touch with each other, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then I was really interested in diving into the divisiveness of that, but also the similarity of that. And on the same day as the Tommy Robinson March, It was also the last night of the proms. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you follow classical music at all, but I'm really into it. And me and my husband and his mum and dad, we were at their house and we were watching the last night of the proms. And it's really interesting because the whole of that auditorium in the Royal
Yeah.
Albert Hall,
Yeah.
they're waving their flags.
Yeah.
And it was a very, united thing that,
Uplifting. Yeah.
flag waving in that scenario, in that context, absolutely acceptable in culture, from
Yeah.
a cultural reference point. But then outside in the street earlier on, it was divided.
Completely. Yeah.
So how can, on the same day, the two actions of flag waving, one be seen as divisive and kind of fighting and problematic, and the other one seen as cultural and beautiful and connecting? So that's what I was really interested in talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. When I saw that post, I just knew right away, oh my God, this is the person we need to have on. Let's talk about, where do you think this has roots? Yeah. How
Yeah.
did it all start?
Well, it all started in primitive times when we were ancestors and cave people. Because if you think about how we organize our belief systems, it's based on whether we feel safe or whether we feel threatened, really.
Yeah.
If we boil it down to that basic feeling of, am I okay here? Am I not okay here? So the only way the brain and the society, when we didn't have very much intellect, at the time when we were cave people, could organize safety versus threat was basically what was similar or what was different.
Yeah.
So if we think of tribes, if you're in my tribe, we all think the same way, we all do the same things, we all, operate in the same ritual. If you're not in my tribe, then you're different. Therefore, you are dangerous because you might kill me or I might be in some kind of safety compromise, right? So that's really where it starts. It's that basic. So then how, skipping forwards thousands and thousands of years, hundreds of thousands, whatever, I don't even know when they were in the cave. But anyway, skipping forward to now, how is it same? How is it different? Well, it's all about our belief system, really, of what we think is true and what we think is correct. And where do our belief systems come from? Well, they come from maybe our heritage, our parents, our, perhaps religious beliefs, our environment, who we hang out with, what we're told. It's basically our conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah.
So some of it's hardwired, but also what I'm really interested in is talking about soft wiring. Soft wiring is where we have neuroplasticity involved, where we can update our beliefs, update our thinking, and, kind of start to think about things in a kind of a way that is more, I suppose, not narrow focused, but broad-mindedly focused, And, it's been interesting for me because I live in the Cotswolds now and I obviously was from London. And as you can see, the colour of my hair isn't a stereotypical Indian person colour. So usually people see my colouring of my hair and they see the way I dress and they hear the way I speak. And this is in the Cotswolds I'm talking about. And they make an assumption that I have got a really good suntan.
Yeah.
From that point onwards, that was when people were just assuming that I was actually white, but I've come from a really lovely tropical holiday somewhere. And I get constantly on a weekly basis, people say to me, oh, where have you been on holiday? Or where do you get your suntan from? What salon do you go to? And it's just become normal. I don't see it as racism. I don't feel it as a feeling of prejudice. I'm just really curious as to, wow, what happened there? People then, what I realize is make instant judgments based on a few things, don't they? And it's based on quick biases, and judgments are based on what people make an assumption of quickly. And that's not because these people are wrong or racist or prejudiced. It's just how the brain works, and we've got to be able to quickly make a judgment as to, is this person safe, and how do I reference, my behavior to this person?
Yeah.
I love that you're saying that. Sorry to interrupt. Just I think this is how animals are wired as well. No,
Yeah.
when you look different, they're like, "Oh, am I safe?" Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a very good point that it's not our fault.
No.
It's just how the brain works, like you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we are still hardwired from that primitive place,
Mhm.
because we are still, we have still a primitive mind, which is our emotional mind. It's the emotional mind that is there to keep us safe, to keep us protected, to essentially keep us alive. And it will quickly signal, am I safe here? Am I not safe here? And it really comes down to that. Funnily enough, the other day, I think a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Royal Festival Hall in the South Bank with my son because he was graduating and that was his graduation. And we walked into the Royal Festival Hall and we were getting our bags checked. And I went all the way to the end to the bag checked, the man at the end. And he was from maybe, I don't know, I think he looked kind of Jamaican. So I don't know whether he was, but he looked Jamaican. And he was really smiling at me. So I thought, oh, he looks friendly. I gave him my bag. And then he said to me, London, Jamaican guy, you've been on holiday. Where have you been? And it was because he also thought I
Yeah.
was, and I said, no, not you as well. I said that I thought that was a Cotswold thing. I said, I'm
Yeah.
Indian or heritage
Yeah.
Indian.
Yeah.
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 And he just looked like really sorry quite quickly. And I said, no, don't worry. I said, I'm just so curious as to what was it about me, because I hadn't even spoken by then. I just
Yeah.
walked to him, said, I'm just curious, what was it about me that you made that instant decision? And he just looked at me and he just went, I don't know, all of you. And then he just did this with his hands. And I thought, wow, that's brilliant, isn't it? It's like quick, instant judgment. And then
Yeah.
that can easily go one way or the other, can't it?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, and then he was like, oh,
And
I'm
it
really,
also
really.
might have been because you were at the airport.
No, Festival Hall.
I was at the
Was it
festival
at the
hall.
airport?
It was at the
Festival Hall.
festival.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
So it wasn't the airport. It was in my son's
Okay,
graduation.
sorry. Yeah, misheard that. Okay,
Yeah.
go on.
So the
Sorry.
bag check to get into the festival hall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was so interesting because I thought, oh, this must be a Cotswold thing because I don't see many Indian people around. But no,
Yeah.
it wasn't. It's a general thing. And then that gets me to thinking about how we do make these snap decisions and, these
Yeah.
belief systems are quickly, going through. And in 1992, there was a study done, and I'm going to read their names, they're called Ambody and Rosenthal, and they did a psychological study about something called thin slicing. And I think that's
Okay.
really interesting. It's basically what, I think it's Gladwell with Blink. He later on wrote the book about, I suppose, biases. But they say we make snap biases about whether somebody we meet is trustworthy, likable,
Yeah.
and essentially safe. And this then depends on we're taking thin slices of information and we're like
Yeah.
bundling all of those slices together to make an opinion or a judgment. And one
And
of
it
those
happens
things,
in a millisecond, isn't it?
it happens in a millisecond, exactly. And one of those things is race, because that's the thing that can quickly separate us or also divide us,
Yeah.
Similarity or status or success, beauty, appearance, age, accent, all of these things are either dividing us or uniting us. So it gives us confirmation bias, and then it also highlights our prejudices, personal ones, and our blind spots.
Yeah, go on.
To be honest, there's a lot there to unpack, and my brain clearly is really slow and stuff at the moment.
Because you had an interesting week.
Nice. That did you see that person on the way out at all of the festival hall?
No.
I'm just curious whether that person, once they, obviously made a mistake and things, did they treat you any differently? Or, was it exactly the same? Or it was just
I
too
think
quickly kind of
he was
happening?
embarrassed.
Right, yeah.
But then when I spoke to him, at length, I stood there for a while because I
Yeah.
explained why, I was asking him. I said to him, "Oh, this is what's happened to me in the Cotswolds for the last 20 years. I made an assumption it was because they didn't see anyone of ethnic heritage or origin really because it's very white middle class round here,
Yeah.
and then I just made an assumption that it was because it was there. But it's interesting that now you're in
It
London,
can.
you see so many different people, but you still make
Yeah.
and then he massively relaxed.
Yeah.
But interestingly enough, people do treat you differently when they think you are not what they thought you were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
'Cause I'm just we've talked a lot about, like the kind of thin slices, and like you say, there is a thing that we all make snap judgments. You can't help that.
yeah, yeah,
But there has to be like an overriding kind of judgment in the long run of whether this initial assessment that I've kind of taken
yeah,
is correct.
yeah,
My initial kind of I've seen you, I've thought you were this. But then you've got to me, I feel that, and everybody does it, like you said before, everybody just naturally does that.
yeah,
But there has to be more in terms of being open to kind of actually finding out, was that the right judgment? Actually, do I need more information and stuff before I can make that, for that, is that judgment
Yeah.
correct?
yeah. And as human beings, we are natural storytellers, right? Aren't we?
Yeah.
And the stories that then we have in our mind associated with that line of thinking is then going to be different in every single person's brain, right? Depending
Yeah.
on how they've grown up and what experiences they might have had, and whether they're
Exactly.
good or whether they're bad, or so in a way we are either predisposed to not letting the story change because this is
Hmm.
how we believe the end, and that's very much narrow minded, isn't it? Or I'm open to exploring if anything can be different here, and then
Yeah.
that's broad minded. So there's a
Yeah.
spectrum between, you're going to get this around every culture, in every, wherever there are human beings, there's going to be a spectrum between narrow minded and broad minded, wherever you are, right?
Yeah.
So my interest really is about exploring how we can broaden the narrow.
Yeah.
By educating, by teaching, by explaining, by, sharing.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I love this. And also, I think that the first important step is to acknowledge we are wired this way,
Yeah.
because I think lots of people deny, or I in denial. No, I'm not biased. I don't have this I'm not wired that way. I don't see any difference. But
Yeah.
we
Not
do.
true.
It's so good
It's
you
not
say
true.
that we are wired that way. So unless that the first step is to acknowledge that.
Yeah.
Okay, I have these quick judgments.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm a bad person.
No, it's
Now,
supposed to be like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's supposed to be like that. And then make the decision. Yeah, what am I gonna do with this? Am I gonna follow that
Yeah.
or choose
Yeah.
wisely?
Yeah, and it
Yeah,
is about just understanding that we are all entitled to make snap decisions. I always talk
Mm.
about it like instant reflex. We've got like a gag reflex, or we've got that knee thing. If the doctor
Yeah.
hammers your knee, your knee is, or your leg is going to shoot up, because that's a
Yeah.
reflex. So think of this as a bias reflex. There's going to be a
Yeah.
reflex. That's it.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
then it depends on how much. Do you carry on using your force of your leg and continue to kick the doctor in the face? Or do you bring
yeah.
your leg back down, right? And that's
Mm,
it. We've got reflexes hardwired into us, but then we've
Mm.
got the soft wiring, which is
Yeah.
about recognizing that there's something in the brain and the body called neuroplasticity. So
Mhm.
if we think about a belief versus a value, for example, this one's a really interesting conversation. People think, oh, my beliefs are my beliefs, I can't change them. But that's not true. Because actually, if we're shown some evidence about something, we've believed this one way, and then we're shown evidence, I don't know, the earth is flat. No, it's not actually, it's now round, and here's the evidence. We then update our belief. Well, some people don't, but other people do.
Yeah.
And, and if perhaps we didn't believe that still, then of course we're going to hang around with the people that think our way, because then that will confirm our belief is true and our belief is right, because we don't want anyone to dispute that, because then we would essentially be wrong.
Yeah.
So once our beliefs are challenged and we then can re-believe something different, that means our beliefs are not hardwired, they are soft-wired. What about a value, though? Can we change one of our values, or is that more hardwiring? And a value could be something like, I believe it's not right to have extramarital relationships or something, Is it that going to change? That's a value.
And change a thing, no? But like you're saying, one of them are easier to change, or no, some things are easier to change than others. I changed so many beliefs throughout my life, and I know I'm gonna change more of them until the end. So that's So what would you say we need to do? What practical steps we can do or take? Sorry, to make a difference.
I think
If they want to make a difference.
if they want to.
Exactly.
Yeah. So as in, how do we change our beliefs?
Yeah.
So if you think about where the beliefs are kind of coded, it's complicated and really simple at the same time, which is quite a paradox. So how we make a belief is what we think again and again on repeat, So a thought creates a feeling, and then a feeling creates, I don't know, behavior, and then a behavior creates an experience, and then your experience creates your reality, and then that confirms your thought or your belief. So a belief loop is always going round and round and round and round like this. So to undo the belief loop, you've got to break it at some point in that loop. So you either break it in the way you think or the way you feel or the way you behave. But the more it goes round the loop, the harder it gets, because you can't change a behavior without changing a feeling or a thought. So really, you've got to change it at the thought level. And so that's where hypnotherapy can come in, because hypnotherapy is basically helping people rewire their thinking and to rethink things in a different way. And we do that change work very slowly and gradually. If I said to somebody, if you come in because you feel anxious, for example, and then I said to you, well, what's the trigger? Why do you feel, what's the main thing you've come in here for? Because the people don't come in at the first point of them feeling anxious, ever. They come in when it's the last port of call, where they've had a massive panic attack about something and it's been really embarrassing, so it's really, really affected their life. And now it's all out there for people to see, for example. And they say to me, they always describe this part, where is the last part. They don't say, when I was 11, my teacher told me to stand up and do some maths on the board and I froze. They won't say that. They'll come and say, I had a panic attack in the middle of a supermarket and it was really embarrassing. So my job is to help them come all the way back to that first point and talk about it from there. Because then when you heal it from there, it doesn't really matter what's happened in between. Everything else just gets updated.
Yeah, the root cause. Yeah. Amazing. Now, I would like to ask you, say, let's take London as an example. And lots of people are surprised when I say there is so much hate and racism in London. And people tend to say, in London, there are so many races together, and they don't want to believe it. Yeah. Why do you think this happens? Because I believe the bigger the city, the more hatred. Yeah. The smaller. Maybe people are, it's like when you go Slovakia, you are different, but people look at him with curiosity, no with hate. Whereas in big cities like London or New York, it's proper hate towards races. So why do you think that is in bigger cities in particular, when you have lots of races together?
I suppose it's the density of the city.
Mm.
Because if Yao goes to Slovakia, you know, and like me in the Cotswolds, it's the same thing. I'm just a lone
Yeah.
thing in the pool of difference. And so that's not threatening, you know.
Yeah.
If there was one tiger in, okay, a tiger's a bad example because
Yeah.
a tiger's quite a fierce, fierce animal. Okay, like say something like, I don't know, something else that's not so threatening, or like maybe like a tiny little snake in a
Yeah.
massive field, then you can run away, can't you? But
Yeah.
if there was like 9,000 snakes and you're in a courtyard all on your own, then that might feel a bit more kind of dangerous.
Yeah.
London can feel like that, really, where there's not much space and everyone is congested in together. And then the factions can feel a bit more relevant and real. Whereas
Yeah.
maybe in the Cotswolds, it's a little bit more spread out and a little bit more underground. And there might be institutionalized racism happening, but I'm
Yeah.
not hugely aware of it, you know.
Mm.
Whereas
Yeah.
maybe in a bigger city, it's more obvious. That's all.
Yeah. 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 Like you said, did we? I'm just trying to think if we had any experiences as a couple in London. Not really. No. Looks. We had looks.
In London,
No.
in Prague, we did.
Oh, in Prague. Yeah.
In
And
Prague, we
that's
did.
that's a big city as
And
well.
it's, a lot of people go there and a lot of people have, you know, stag
Hmm.
weekends,
Mm.
hen dos, everything. It's quite a multicultural kind of
City.
city
Mm.
for, what it is. I'm just curious because I can go into London and I'm not ever worried that I'm going to come across a racist or anything. I'm walking about and I'm never thinking, oh, well, I might bump into whoever group you align yourself and stuff to, because
Because you grew up
it's,
there, no?
yeah, but it's when you have those parades and, you got people kind of coming together, you do feel like what's going on and
Yeah.
things. My stag do in Liverpool,
Yeah.
um, walked out of the station and there was a big massive march and stuff that was going through. And we kind of like Liverpool, the culture, so much kind of going on and stuff. The last thing that, you were thinking of going there was the day that there was a massive kind of, I can't remember. I don't want to give voice to the actual, but it was a nationalist right wing march that was going on.
Hmm.
I walked out and I was just like, oh my God, seriously, my stag do of all days, of all weekends, kind of do this. This happens then. And then even within that, I think it was within an hour of kind of being there, we heard that that parade got chased out of Liverpool. And, I'm not all about the conflict and stuff that's involved in things in this, but to kind of say, there's a lot of racists and stuff in these big cities. There's a lot of racists here, there, and everywhere. But some, like you
No, I
saying,
mean, like people can't believe it does happen in big cities.
right,
That's what I
okay,
mean. Yeah.
sorry, but it seems like some places, it's very prevalent. You can really see it and
Mm.
things. Some places not so much,
Mm.
and people might smile and be that way and things. It's a very difficult thing to kind of see.
But it's really interesting, though, when you speak to somebody. I mean, I have a lot of clients from all over the world, and
Yeah,
once I explain this hardwiring, soft wiring thing and this kind of togetherness and otherness, separation
yeah,
and distance and, like connection thing, and I say, this is how it is in the brain already, but the reason why it stays separate is because we haven't understood how to connect it. And once
yeah,
you learn how to connect it, if you want to connect it, because some people don't, right? They want to
yeah,
stay in that camp, and this one wants to stay in that camp, and like, that's fine. That, they can just do that. But the majority of people, human beings, are not divided. We've got to
mm,
remember that. The majority are not. It's just that the factions get a lot of I suppose, airtime or,
Yeah,
energy.
exactly.
And
Yeah,
we've got to remember they are the minority, actually, if you
yeah,
add it all up. But it feels scary because what's happening with our news, or, our media
exactly.
outlets, and social media, it's that these things are getting a little bit far too much airtime, maybe. Or, when you look at one thing, then you get fed another and another and another and another. And then it gives us a kind of
Unrealistic.
disproportionate, value about what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But actually, if we think about it, it's not the case. I can go to London. I mean, on that day I'm talking about of the march, there was also the last night of the proms. There was also, a cancer race along the bridges. There was also 4 or 5 football matches happening in London, but neither of these people knew the other thing was happening. If there wasn't any
No,
social media, you wouldn't know, and you'd think
no.
my event's the only thing that's happening here today.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to kind of work with. I don't particularly want to kind of go in this
Too deep.
yeah. Media, politics, it's always been something that sells. It's
Mhm.
always been something that divisive nature has always
Mm.
been something that politicians and other areas could quite happily use
Yes.
to kind of further their agenda. It's
Exactly.
simple, and sometimes we can be manipulated if we hear that same story again and again and again. It's easy to. If
Yeah.
you hear it from you hear it from your mates around you and things,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you start to kind of
Exactly,
believe
and
that?
that's again how the belief system works. It's
Yeah,
repetition, isn't it? What we think
yeah,
we hear on repeat again and again and again and again. We feel it and then we believe it. And then that's how a belief system is formed.
yeah.
I have a good example with that when I moved to London, and I heard lots of people say, "Oh, I don't want Pakistani doctor. I want English doctor."
Mhm.
Really?
Yeah, and I heard it all over, or like, oh, it's not the white city anymore. You have all these like little shops with Pakistani, Bangladesh people, and they'll take over London, yeah.
Mm.
And I was surrounded by this lots, lots of the time. So I started thinking and believing that at
Mm.
one point.
Really?
Yes, and then it was after I met you that I started to change my beliefs, my thinking patterns, and my eyes opened like, oh my God. And now I know better. Yeah,
Yeah.
obviously.
Well, it's about
Hopefully.
But yeah,
liking somebody first and then you trust them. And then that
yes,
opens your eyes to where your prejudice might have been. And as you said, we've all got them. We've
Yeah.
all got them. We've all got
Yeah.
biases. We have to have them. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to filter out right from wrong or good from
Yeah.
bad or safe from unsafe. So we have to have those, filters in the brain. But as soon as we can then learn that those filters don't have to be hardwired either, that's really the key to self-awareness and to I suppose benevolence and compassion and
Yeah.
yeah. It took me years to actually start changing my beliefs and views. So don't feel the pressure to, oh, I need to convince them now. No.
and it's not
And the
about
more you,
convincing either. It's not about
or
right, oh,
pushing,
I'm
no,
right, you're wrong, I'm right. Because no one wants to hear they're wrong because already that will give you a big defense mechanism barrier.
exactly.
You're wrong. That doesn't feel good.
Actually, like my beliefs changed the best, or people who change my beliefs or challenge my beliefs, if people who don't try and convince me or push their views, they
Mhm.
just make some remark or a flyaway comment
Yes.
and just leave it there. And I'm
Yeah.
like, huh, yeah,
Yes. And that's
actually.
how the brain works, it's about, and that's basically how hypnotherapy works. We make
Ah,
suggestions. That's it. And when we make suggestions, it's like taking a load of clothes into the changing room with you. And you go, oh, I like that, I like that, I like that, I like that. I like it on the look of it. And you take them into the changing room, try them all on for size. But invariably, you don't come out and buy all of them because maybe one thing didn't look good, one thing didn't fit well. You
Mm.
only take away what fits you and looks good and makes you feel good, right? This
yeah,
is the same thing with suggestions. They might not all work, but some might. And those are the ones you then adopt as your new way of
yeah,
thinking.
exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of space in being able to kind of be vulnerable
Mm.
with someone that you don't know. and, someone who's not in your camp as such, not in your, because sometimes the learning that we gain from it and some of the things that we get from it, so much more than, we would if we were in that kind of closed system. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate using this as an analogy. If you turn around and look at just I'm a foodie and I love food so much. And you think of all the variants and all the different kind of delicacies and things that we have as part of being, such a multicultural
Mm.
kind of system that we're like, oh, where's this from? Oh, I can't believe, and you could turn around and have those conversations. Did you try that? And it's these
Yeah.
things that kind of you have these divides, but it completely kind of knocks these divides and it pulls people to kind of together. And that's with anything, with music, with sport, with so many different variants. That whole thing about the Royal Albert Hall, you have, and you've got such a mix of people and stuff that are there and stuff at the time, and they're waving, but they're waving it for all the right reasons because we're talking about a unity
Yeah.
that we all want to be together and things.
Yeah.
It's a great analogy, I think. You said you
Okay.
hate it, but I think it's great.
The food idea is a really, really good example of how we can be united through a system of difference. It's like, where is this from? And how can we fusion it together,
Mm.
and food and culture can be, united in that way, can't it? And that's a really good
Absolutely.
example of how we can enjoy other people and other ways of being and other cultures. Music, you also talked
Oh,
about.
yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
And I think that fusion and that melting pot can be really powerful. We've also got to be realistic, as well as thinking about the utopian world of everyone coming together as one big homogenized race or state. That probably is not going to
No.
happen. Because it's
No.
not just because you're different. Yes, you might be great and amazing, and I love to know about you, but it might also not be safe either, So it's about just finding the balance, isn't it?
The balance, yeah.
Agree.
The bridge,
That
like you said.
Yeah.
bridge, yeah. And I talk about that bridge a lot. It's a bridge that I talk about in psychological terms. So if we think about our emotional mind is the part of our mind that's trying to keep us safe. So it gives us things like anxiety, fear, and anger. And then the intellectual mind is the part of our mind that is broad-minded, that can make a proper assessment of a situation based on the situation, not based on biases or prejudices or those fine slices. And then across the two is the bridge. And I call that emogic balance because it's emotional and logical. And if we've got emotional and logical balance, emogic balance, that shows us that we're open-minded, but we're not too open where we're prone to attack, So you talked about vulnerability. Yeah. And vulnerability doesn't mean, oh, yeah, I'm totally open to everything.
No.
You can't be.
Exactly.
That's probably not, that's not the best way of living. Or not to be totally closed either. It's just about, being curious.
Balance.
Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Amazing, amazing. It's our word of
It's amazing.
And-
Let's just use amazing.
Is there any message you would like to say to the people who listen on this subject?
Well, if we think about how we interact best with people, it's because we learn to like something about that person. And then when we learn to like something, we learn to trust. And then when we learn to trust, we learn to open up, So it's about finding how we can all move into liking rather than disliking, because the energy is nicer, isn't it? And if we can all be in, likability, that then helps the world feel a bit more sort of, friendlier, really,
Yeah.
And safer.
and
100%.
safer. Yeah.
Yeah. Before we let you go, tell us about your work a bit more, and we also share the links in the show notes.
Well, so yeah, I have an online practice as well as a face-to-face one. So if anyone's around the Cotswolds, you can come and find me in the Cotswold practice. Online, my website is diptitait.com. I see clients from all around the world.
Yeah.
2 books, Good Grief and Planet Grief. And I think that's it, really.
Amazing.
Thank you for having
Amazing.
me on. I really appreciate
We thank you. It's been a privilege to have you on, and I really mean it. Soothing Dipti.
it.
I love it. And you are 100%. And I think our listeners can hear that for themselves. So if you enjoyed this episode, you know what to do. Leave a review. I know it might take some time to work it out, but we are worth it, aren't we?
We'll work on the petition to Apple for the reviews.
And then share the episode far and wide so it can reach and help and make a real difference in the world, because this is where it starts with these conversations. So share it
Absolutely.
far and wide, please.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. That was brilliant. That was a great conversation.
Yeah. Thank you so much, and see you in 2 weeks.
Take care.